Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to try to define our vocabulary terms from the Revolutionary War, from the period of our founding fathers, and we'll only worry about the terms that are on page 1, from abdicate to insist. There's quite a few of them, nonetheless, and we shall begin with the terms that are currently listed on this page. I hope this red will show up. Let's see. In any case, we will jump around and go back and forth. If you're talking about the suffering and pain that the Pilgrims experienced upon landing in the New World and realizing that there were no hotels and no inns or anything like that, you could say that they were suffering from anguish, right? When someone is feeling anguish, they're feeling agony. They are feeling mental and physical pain. If you talk about someone's rival or enemy, you could call that person his or her adversary, their rival, their opponent, one who challenges you. To do away with something is to abolish. For example, you want to do away with that particular rule or that particular law. You want to abolish what is being currently done. You want to delete it. Void it, perhaps. And let's see. This is an old-fashioned word for a fever, and we pronounce it with ague. So ague. If you're suffering from ague, you're suffering from a fever or a cold. But again, it's not a word that we often hear in this day and age. We know what an ambulance is, right? We know what it means to be ambulatory, and that means to be able to move, to be able to walk, able to amble. When an entire area is decimated, we could say that it was subjected to annihilation, total and complete destruction. If you agree with something and you give your consent, you can acquiesce. The terms of the treaty were acquiesced to by both parties. They were agreed to, they were consented to, for both the Wampanoag tribe and the Pilgrims in America. When a king gives up his crown, he is said to abdicate, to give up or surrender. Most of the time it has to do with the throne, to abdicate power. And then lastly, the word aphorism is a statement of truth. Early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise, as Ben Franklin said. It's kind of a little maxim or a proverb or a short, witty saying, something that is a statement of truth. Sometimes you may have heard the expression an old adage, an old statement of truth. Okay, next bunch that appears before us are the following. And if you're going to say that the tablet will dissolve in water, you're basically saying that it will eventually melt in water, or it'll turn into liquid. But in terms of the Revolutionary War, they want to dissolve all ties with the mother country. If you're going to try to use magic or try to come up with theories, you might say use the verb conjure. To conjure up something is to summon, as if by magic. Speaking of magic, I think everybody probably knows what an apparition is. An apparition is just a fancy word for a ghost or a phantom. We talk about the apparition of hope, or at least the founding fathers do at one point. We had acquiesce, and now we have assent. To assent is to agree. I can use it as a verb, and I can also use it as a noun. And if I want to say I'm looking for your assent, I'm looking for your consent. I'm looking for your agreement. You probably see the root word of delude in delusive. And if you're suffering from delusions, it means you're giving a false or fake impression. Your delusive ideas. One of the reasons why the founding fathers wanted freedom was because of the despotism of King George III, the tyranny. A despot is a tyrant. So we talk about despotism as tyranny, the absolute rule. Sometimes before the beginning of school, you have to go to a depository to pick up your books. It is a place where things are stored. Let's see, what else? Consanguinity, that's a really big word. Con meaning with, sanguine means actually blood. So with blood. When you talk about consanguinity, you're saying things that are blood related. By bonds of consanguinity, it's basically saying we are related by blood. And to constrain someone, it's almost the same word as restrain. To constrain is to hold back. To restrain, to prevent, to confine. They felt constrained by the current laws. You may have heard the expression, despite all of our entreaties, we still couldn't get him to agree. Despite all of our pleas, despite all of our prayers, all of our requests. A plea, a request, a prayer of sorts. And we still couldn't get him to listen. The dissolution of a country is the breaking apart of the country. A breaking up into parts. Let's see, what else can we do here? To exploit something as a verb. If you exploit the natural resources, it means to sort of, it's a negative word, to make use of unethically. You destroy it all. If you're exploiting someone or something, you destroy it. And if I want to talk about someone's exploits, that simply is a daring act or a feat or a deed. Let's see, what else? If you want to foment enthusiasm in the locker room before the game, it means to stir it up. And maybe you have to do that when you're facing a formidable foe, a foe that causes fear or dread or even awe. You're just in awe of them. Okay, let's see, an endeavor. I can use this as a verb. I will endeavor to do so, to try to do so. You may have heard it as a verb in that case. I can also talk about his endeavors, which is an attempt to do something. What will he endeavor today? Actually, that's more of a verb. But my many endeavors, my many efforts. An effort. To be endowed with great abilities is to be blessed with, you might say, or to provide with. It could be to provide with talent or quality. And if I say that your face evinces pain, I'm saying that it shows it clearly, to show clearly, to illustrate. And the last one for this page, we've heard of extenuating circumstances, right? If you're trying to extenuate something as a verb, we're going to talk about the idea to make it less serious. To make something less serious. Great. We have a couple more on this page, and we know that if you're super smart, somebody might call you ingenious, very clever, very resourceful, very wise. To show a lack of respect for something, or a lack of reverence, is to be impious. To lack reverence or respect for God. Okay, if your jokes induce me to laughter, they persuade me, they engage me to do so, they bring about. If you have a piece of jewelry that's of inestimable wealth or worth, it means that it's too great to be measured. Photographs could be inestimable because you can't really replace them, and they are so much more important than money. Let's see. An implement as a noun could be a tool. Remember, some of the Native Americans actually stole the implements of the Pilgrims at one point. Or we could say to implement the plan is to sort of carry into effect, to bring into effect. We're going to implement this next week. I'm sure you've all heard of the expression, an indentured servant, right? If you're indentured, it is a contract. A contract binding situation. Very often it's for a person who has to offer up his work for free for a certain number of years until he can gain his freedom. And if you indulge in a child too often, if you tend to satisfy their needs and constantly cater to their whims, you might be creating a little baby monster, To yield to their wishes all the time makes them very spoiled. To yield to another's wishes. An idle mind is the devil's workshop, said the Puritans, right? It's not good to be lazy, to be useless, to be involved in things that are futile. In other words, be busy, work, and glorify God, right? And lastly, hypocrisy on this page. Everybody knows what it means to be a hypocrite. It's the act of pretending to be what one is not. Hypocrisy, right? To be fake. Okay, I know it's been a long list, but these are the last three. Terrific. An infidel is one who does not believe in a certain religion or in any religion, right? One who doesn't believe in a particular religion or any religion. You could call an infidel somebody who has no belief, or one that just doesn't adhere to the kind that you follow. If a group is trying to create an insurrection, they're trying to create a rebellion. And lastly, we have to be careful we don't trust the insidious promises of the Britons, something that is marked by deceit and by treachery. And there you have it, the first set of words from the Revolutionary War period.